do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah.
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Yeah, great job, guys.
And good morning, and welcome to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thank you for joining me on a bright and warm Sunday morning. 2 Sundays in a row. All right, we got to get back to a Saturday night thing, but March Madness got in the way in the Final Fours, and what a game. I'm not sure how many basketball fans we have out there, but that Duke-Houston game was quite entertaining, to say the least. Sorry to the Duke fans, because I'm probably guessing they're more Duke fans than Houston fans that are NASCAR fans. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong about that. But either way, we're not here to talk about basketball. We are here to talk about racing. And at Darlington, from bright and sunny and very warm Darlington, South Carolina. And boy, they're going to get the race in at least a day before the storms that have been ravaging Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and all that are going to move their way east, and we will have lots of rain and storms in Darlington on Monday, maybe even late into the evening tonight, but I think we will have no problem getting this race in. Temperatures are going to be close to 90 degrees. It's going to be quite warm in the cars today. So, with that being said, we will also see even higher tire wear with the track being as warm as it's going to be. So, this should be, in my opinion, should be quite an entertaining race with a lot of strategies, lots of fall off, and all that. But before we get to Darlington, let's head back to Martinsville, where I got the opportunity to go and watch live in person. And Denny Hamlin, who I guess is against the world, or everybody's against him. I don't know. I kind of like his podcast. He's from Richmond. He's not my most favorite driver, but he is entertaining, to say the least. And what a dominating performance. We haven't seen a domination quite like that from Denny Hamlin at Martinsville. As they said after the race, it had been 10 years. And yeah, it had been 10 years since Denny Hamlin had put on quite the show that he had at Martinsville this past weekend. I mean, and I went to the race. It was a good race. It was about what you expect from Martinsville in the next gen car, to be perfectly honest. It was a little bit better than what they used to have with the much harder tire compound. But it was pretty typical. They just need to, I agree with all of the talking heads from this week, they need to make the tire even softer. Whatever they did and whatever they found, and I know that the scientists are smart enough and the Goodyear engineers and everything are smart enough to figure out what the tire compound was that they had at Bristol, I guess last spring, or yeah, whenever it was, where we had, I mean, they could barely run 50 laps at Bristol before the tires were just absolutely shot. Now, I think that may have been a little on the extreme side, but somewhere between what they were currently running at Martinsville and what they had at that Bristol race would be way better. Either way, since it pretty much ran the way I thought it was going to run, my picks for the week were pretty much spot on. And I mean, I've got a thumbs down for Todd Gilliland, but I mean, he still was in the talk for a place differential driver. I just didn't really like it a whole lot, so I didn't run a whole lot. But everybody else, I mean, I thought Denny would do well. I called the Chase Elliott rebound race. Bubba Wallace was very solid. Ryan Preece, I called. He always does super well at those little short tracks from his modified days. And, I mean, I wasn't super high on Ross Chastain, but he has always run Martinsville kind of in the top 10 area, and that's what happened. Christopher Bell, I did not think would start for the pole and end up finishing second. He only led 25 laps, so it wasn't a huge points day, but he still had 56.7. Kyle Larson at 43.85. Joey Logano did what I thought Joey Logano was going to do. Briscoe kind of was there at the end. Ryan Blaney, I faded off Ryan Blaney, and I mean, he had 55.7 points, but at 11,200, we couldn't have substituted him anywhere in here, and that's kind of what I had thought, was he was not probably going to make optimal lineup, because he was going to need to, number one, have place differential, and he was going to need to lead laps and do some dominator stuff, and I just didn't think that was possible, and he ended up with an 11th place finish. Now, we could come back in the fall, it's a whole nother ballgame with the Penske cars. Michael McDowell actually did much better than I thought. Ty Gibbs, it kind of was a slight rebound race, and I kind of thought that may have been the case. I wish he had gotten a little bit better. He did end up having some issues. I can't remember if he got spun, had a pit road violation. I think it was a pit road violation or something. But he still clawed his way back to 13th, which was, a good, solid run for Ty Gibbs, since I'm not sure he's finished in the top 20 in, 10 races or something. And Tyler Reddick, he got 29.85 points. It's not really a thumbs down, because I was way off Tyler Reddick. I expected him to finish worse than that, but either way. Our optimal lineup challenge, man, it's all knotted up top with, what is that, 6 drivers tied for 3. Alex Bowman, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, and Ryan Preece. I mean, the Ross, okay. The Ryan Preece, okay. The other ones, I kind of expected to be there. Will William Byron get one today? Very good possibility. Ryan Blaney always kind of comes in a little bit later in the season, so I expect him to probably be there later, but the rest of these are pretty much where I kind of thought they would be. Either way, that was Martinsville. It was fun. It was a good time. It was good seeing my best friend and hanging out and seeing his family and stuff, and a lot of other friends I got to hang out with for the weekend. But we are back to, I guess, a normal schedule. Maybe after this weekend. Next weekend is Bristol, and I plan on being live after the Xfinity race, which is scheduled to start at 5, should be done by about 7:30 or 8. I should be able to go live by about 9 o'clock. All right, we are headed to Darlington. This will not be a night race. This will not end under the lights. This will be a bright, sunny day. So will Chase Briscoe be able to repeat? I don't know. Will Keselowski be able to do something? I don't know. Maybe. Either way, this track type is very steep, high tire wear. It really acts like a concrete track. It's just been baked and pitted, and it's just a really rough surface that the best way around to save your tires is literally ripping the fence, as they call it. It's right along the top of the track. Now, turns 1 and 2, which on this here is to the left, they want to enter. It's actually kind of a double apex. So what that kind of means is they're going to enter low here, drift up to the fence, and then they want to get back down here. So they want to enter low, exit low, and rip the top in the middle. It's kind of a diamond is the way it kind of ends up working out. So that way they can get the car as straight as possible as soon as they can to gain speed to get down through here. And then this is just slam on the brakes at about this spot here, and then just ride the fence, and then gas it up and go. But either way, this race length is 293 laps. Strange number of laps because it's 1.33 miles in length, and we're going approximately 400 miles. Like I said, it is 25 degrees in turns 1 and 2, and 23 degrees in turn 3 and 4. And the radius is much tighter in 3 and 4 with not as much banking. Dominator points will be a factor again this week. Not as big of a factor as we saw last week, but 205.10 points of Dominator points are on the line. And yes, Dominator points will absolutely matter. We are looking for somebody that's going to get up front, stay up front, lead, 80, 100 laps, somewhere in that range. And there's about, in my opinion, 5 or 6 drivers that could very easily do that today. We're also going to see comers and goers. We're going to see fast laps that are going to be kind of... The Dominators will have probably the most fast laps, but we will still see fast laps throughout the field, because we'll start to see if we have a decent long run, meaning 35, 40, 45 laps, we're going to start to see some strategies come into play, and we're going to start to see some green flag pit stops, because after about 35 to 40 laps, the lap speeds drop off, almost 2.5 seconds per lap. So if you're kind of mid-pack and you jump the gun and get into pit road, because you can actually pit and just barely go a lap down, but you can very quickly make up, because your first 5 or so laps, you're going to be 2.5 to 3 seconds faster than the leader. And then that's who's going to be getting the fast laps. So the fast laps will kind of be spread throughout the field, but under a green flag restart or a yellow caution. So after stage 1, stage 2, and anytime there's a caution, everybody's going to be kind of equalized on tires. So typically the leaders and the front runners in the clean air are going to have typically the faster laps. Drafting is not as big. Other tracks to compare to, of course, we've got Dover, Darlington, Miami Homestead, Kansas. You can also put in Nashville Superspeedway. You can put in Vegas. You can put in Texas. They all kind of have a high tire wear situation. But Darlington is very unique, where it's probably the most abrasive track we go to. So it kind of is in a spot where it stands alone. Miami Homestead would probably be the second most high tire wear. But Darlington definitely is that. And Wyatt, welcome. Yo, what's up? I'm clueless this weekend. I got a feeling Denny runs good. I have a feeling that KFB also runs well. Yeah, this is a track that Denny runs extremely well, and he is got the momentum on his side coming out of Martinsville. He is feeling good. He really likes Darlington. Tyler Reddick also runs this track extremely well. We've got about 5 guys that I think really could become in play. Kyle, this is a track that he does typically do fairly well at. His speeds were okay in practice. He could definitely be somebody that you could take a shot on. So we'll get to all the driver-by-driver breakdown, and we'll hopefully make it a little bit more sense for you, Wyatt, as we go through this. All right, because I had more time while watching basketball, I got a little more creative, and as you'll see when we get to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I've got some new graphics to kind of share. And I'm always kind of playing with things and kind of seeing if something hits on, and this is kind of something that we've talked about. But either way, let's look at the optimal lineups first, but kind of keep in mind what I've got highlighted here, which is the more expensive drivers. And this is kind of what I was talking about last week with Ryan Blaney. Because he was so expensive, he had to have a ton of points. And yeah, he was going to make up a lot of place differential, but price tag was so expensive that he was going to need to get to the front, lead laps, have fast laps, and all that to really start to get into this realm. But starting from the back makes it really, really difficult to do that. So and that's kind of that's why I was kind of a fade, because it was more not that I didn't think he would have a decent day. I did, and he did. He ran kind of in the top 10, but he didn't have a lot of fast laps and he didn't lead laps. So all he got was place differential and finishing position. And against, a Denny Hamlin who had how many points? 151 points. That's a massive day. He led 274 laps. It's just wasn't going to happen. Even Chase Elliott, starting second, finishing fourth, led 42 laps and had 75, and then you had Brian Blaney at 55. It was all just place differential. He had a couple of fast laps at 6, but so that's kind of what I'm kind of pointing out here is when we're building these lineups, and we're going to use some of these expensive guys because they're expensive for a reason. They're expected to have really kind of big days, in the 70, 120, type points days. So, but I also kind of highlighted them because it kind of gives you an idea, an area of how many DraftKings points we need to get out of somebody that's expensive. A lot of times people are talking about how many Dominators do you usually need. For here, I'm going to target 2, but I'm going to expect one of them to be a Dominator and one of them to be a... Good morning, Andrew. How are you? One of them to be a Dominator and the other one to start well and finish well. And what that kind of means is a William Byron. Maybe he goes out and leads the first 10, 15 laps. Somebody who managed their tires a little bit better, or maybe their setup's a little bit better, comes up and then takes over the lead. But William Byron just kind of hangs out all day in the top 4 and then gets a second place finish. That's, he potentially could easily go out and dominate and lead 100, 120 laps. But I will still target him because I think William Byron could be a Dominator. He could also be a great finisher. Even starting from the pole, only losing that 1, maybe 2 spots. If he leads a few laps, he still ends up in the 60, 70 point range, which, as we see, is enough for kind of the more expensive guys. Then you kind of drop down to this middle tier, and we're kind of in the 50s and 60s type range. We're not having to really jump up to the 73s. Now, Josh Berry in the spring last year had 73.25 points. Now, that was a little bit of an anomaly, and he way overperformed what I needed, and he did have a ton of place differential. And he did that through pit stops, and also ran really well and was really good on the longer runs with the decent tire wear. But either way, so kind of that middle tier, we're looking for a little bit of place differential. Maybe they get some laps led, but they get decent finishes. Corey LaJoie, let's see. Then the cheaper guys, we're looking in the over 40 to 50. And you're going to kind of have to have those. Justin Haley at 54 points and these guys in the high 40s. And then we kind of look at some of these other races where the really expensive guys, they're all in the high 60s, 60 plus almost all the way across the board. These are 59 points, whatever, but pretty much call it 60s where you need to kind of pinpoint. So it's who can go and get 60 points in the expensive tiers, and then in the mid tiers and cheaper tiers, it's going to be above 45 and then above 35. So when I look at the top 15 DraftKings points, this is kind of the bottom threshold that I want to kind of target, and how many points do I think somebody can maintain or can get for the race and where they started. So kind of if we look at these, quick average is about 33, 34 points is kind of where we kind of need to settle in, that if we don't think a driver is going to get to the 34, 35 point range, that's probably somebody we need to fade on and not worry about. So that will start to shrink the 38 down to, I don't know, about 18, maybe even 15 drivers that we want to target. And what you want to kind of target are those top 15 drivers, and then you can kind of separate them out. Okay, these 5 are the cheap ones, these 5 are the middle tiers, and these 5 are the most expensive. And that's when you start to build your lineups, and that's why I build, sometimes 40, sometimes 80 different lineups. And a lot of my builds are hand builds. I don't use any of the fancy-dancy computer algorithmic systems out there. I kind of build almost all of my lineups by hand. So, and I do it on Excel, and then I import it in because it's easier to kind of mix and match that way and kind of see where things are going. But either way, this is kind of the point threshold that we're kind of looking at, is 35 to 34 points or better. And if we don't think a driver is going to get there, that's when we just want to fade them on away. Okay, let's get into the driver by driver breakdown, because each one of these, because we have another slide to each of these drivers to look at, this could take a little bit longer. So bear with me as we kind of go through all these. If you're new here, hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate you tuning in. There's lots of people who do Sunday shows. That's why I typically like to do the Saturday show. But hopefully I can keep you guys entertained and give you enough information that you'll keep coming back. All right. Kyle Larson, $10,500 is his price in Draftkings. When we compare the last 5 races, at Darlington, they run twice a year. So we've got lots of data, and we can use all 5 of the last 5 races, and that's supposed to be 2022. I keep forgetting to fix that. Oh well. This correlates with this here, and I'm the only one here, and the dogs would like to bark. So if the dogs start barking, sorry, it is part of the daytime. The dogs see everything. Leaf falls, squirrels, delivery drivers, all that fun stuff. All right, back to this. So Darlington, last 5 races. Here's Kyle Larson's stats. He has 1 win in those last 5 races. He's got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 53.5 DraftKings average. His average finishing position is 14.2, but his average running position for those 5 races is 9.0. He finished the fall race at Darlington, which is a 500-mile race. He finished that in 4th. He's raced 14 total times at Darlington with 1 win, but half the time he's finishing in the top 5. He's got 9 top 10s out of those 14 starts, and 12 of 14 he's finished in the top 20 with a 10.8 average finish. His practice speeds, he was in Group 2. Group 2 is the slower of the 2 practices, but it gives you a better judge on what your car is going to do under more typical normal race conditions. What that means is Group 1 hits the track. The track is what they call green or fresh. No rubber has been laid down, or not a lot of rubber has been laid down. And the tire compound is different from the Xfinity Series. So Xfinity Series did have practice before the Cup Series, so there was still a little bit of rubber built into the track, but they do go and clean it and blow it off, so it is still slightly cleaned. So typically, Group 1 comes out, the track's green, it's fresh, and they hit the track. They have the most traction. There's very little rubber, and the rubber that gets ground into the pavement stays there, and as that begins to happen, that rubber is slicker, or at least can possibly attach to the tires. That's why you see him swerving back and forth, is to get that rubber, excess rubber, off of the tires, which then gives them a little more traction. Either way, all that being said, Group 1 is always faster to fire off than Group 2. Group 2, because there's more rubber on the track, they have more realistic race expectations. Their times are slightly slower. When I mean slightly, it's tenths of a second slower, which, yes, over a long run does matter. But Group 2 has a better judge of what their car is going to do in race conditions. Group 1 has better idea how fast their cars are. So you'd rather see the cars in Group 2, and that's why the Group 1 is typically who did not have a good race last week and their current points standings. Kyle Larson had a decent race last weekend. He is in the top 5 in points. He gets put into Group 2. all that being said. Okay, let's look at the lap averages. Ryan Blaney probably had the best overall run. So he is in this green, and he will be kind of our controlled car. I now have added the average. So this is all drivers and their average speed throughout a 36 lap run. And as you can see, they fire off in the low 30s, so 30.1, 30.2, and by the time they get to lap 36, they're at almost 32, so almost a 2-second fall off. Well, you can just this just continues to go up as they get further and further on tires. So they get to lap 40, 45, 50, they're going to be close to the 32.5-second range. So somebody comes in under a green flag condition first, fires back off at 30 seconds, going against somebody at 32.5, they're making up 2.5 seconds a lap. Well, when you're talking about 32-second lap times, doesn't take long to start catching people and making up that time. Okay, with all that being said, I also like to see nice, consistent, not a whole lot of jagged lines. Like this one here looks like lap 25, lap 26. Blaney has a little bit of maybe a wiggle, maybe he scrapes the wall, maybe he's got to slow up to pass somebody, which gives him a slightly slower lap. I'm not too concerned about that. It's when you get super jagged all over the place. So if we look at Kyle Larson's, he's pretty consistent, pretty close to Ryan Blaney. Starting in 19th, that's going to be pretty good. Should have a good long run speed car. I'm okay with that. I think Kyle Larson's pretty safe as a bet and play for the race. Now for the new chart. Okay, so everybody, if you've watched the videos in the past, you have seen that I've flipped back and forth to this points, how I can decide how many points somebody potentially could get. Now, this is not fully, this is based on averages. So when we look back at Kyle Larson's average finish, 10.8 and 14.2, and kind of his average running position, I'm kind of putting it all together and saying, okay, let's give him an 11th place average finish. Well, he's starting in 19th. If he just gets to his average, which is 11, and then I look at all of his past data at Darlington, he has an average over those 5 races, an average of 20 fast laps. One race he may not have any fast laps. Doubtful, but maybe he doesn't have any. The next race he has 40. Well, the average is going to be 20. So this is all based on averages. Same thing with laps led. Doesn't mean he's going to start in 19th and go lead 60 laps. We're just guessing at this point, so let's base everything on averages. So starting in 19th, finishing 11th, 20 fast laps and 60 laps led gives him 64 points. I remember back to the very beginning of the video, or towards the beginning of the video, we looked at the optimal lineups and where the high-priced drivers needed to be. And I said they kind of needed to be in the 60s range. So let's call 55 plus points to be potentially optimal. Well, if we just base everything on averages, Kyle Larson is in that plus column. That makes, in my opinion, Kyle Larson probably a decent play. Anything possible, he gets tied up with somebody else, wrecks the car, and it's over. That happens. But if everything is static and we just go off averages, Kyle Larson should have 64 points. And hence why he is the most expensive driver, because this will be the highest point total we see from many of the drivers today. Once again, we can go in and fix this. So I can go here and we can make Kyle Larson finish in first and lead 60 laps. Well, that gives us our 87 points. That's potentially very realistic because he does run this track very well. You know, in the laps led and fast laps, that could be probably maybe accurate for finishing in first because they're going to get spread out a little bit. But that's 87 points. That definitely puts him in the optimal range. So that's this new chart. I'm going to try to have this each and every week so that way we can kind of get a guide on what drivers potentially to put into our kind of top 15 drivers we want to target and who we want to kind of fade off of. So, and this gives us an actual real world look at actual points, or what could be actual points. Okay, with that being said, let's get on to the rest of the drivers. Lots of explanations, especially on the first one, just to kind of give you a breakdown. All right, next, Tyler Reddick, 10,200, starting in the 7th position. His practice speeds were pretty good for the second practice, which was the slower of the two. 16th, he did 32 laps of practice. He was 8th in the 10-lap consecutive run. He does not have a win here, surprisingly. Tyler Reddick, who is really, really good at this track, loves ripping the fence, does not have a win here. Leads a ton of laps, though. We can look at his average running position of 6.2 over the last 5 races at Darlington. Really, really good. He finished 10th in the fall race. He was leading a ton of laps in the spring before he and Chris Buescher got into a disagreement on who belonged where on the track and ended up wrecking each other, which gave Brad Keselowski the win. Either way, Brad was still running third and running really well. Tyler Reddick, like I said, no wins, but has really decent race speed. So let's look at his practice speeds. Slightly slower than Ryan Blaney. Not bad though. Pretty consistent. No real jagged times, which we kind of that's worrying to me. And we'll see a couple of those here in a few minutes. But he's kind of mostly underneath the average score. So kind of what we expect from Tyler Reddick at Darlington. He's very good. All right, let's look at his potential. Tyler Reddick, 10,200, starting in the 7th position. And his average finish, I estimate to be about a 10th. That's taking into average running position, actual average finish, and his total track history average. So I kind of rounded and say 10th. Well, he loses 3 points for place differential. Okay, not that big of a deal, because he averages 25 fast laps and 50 laps led. Once again, averages. 54.75, right at the line for that potential optimal. Now, let's just kind of play with the numbers here. Let's say he finishes 5th. Well, that takes him to 64.75. Definitely an optimal range, especially if he's got 25 fast laps and leads 50 laps. Let's say he only leads 20 laps. Well, that takes him to a 57.25. Still, potentially in that optimal range for at least his price range. So, I kind of like this chart. Tyler Reddick is still definitely somebody that's in play, even starting in 7th. All right, Denny Hamlin, next in line here. Last week's race winner, 10,100, starting in 3rd. He was really consistent in practice. 12th on single lap speed, 13th in the 10-lap consecutive average. If we look at his averages over the last 5 races here, very consistent. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 10th place average finish with an 8.4 average running position, and he finished in 7th. Total history at Darlington, he's got 25 starts and 5 wins. Really, really good. 15 top 5s, but in those 25 starts, 22 of 25 he's finished in the top 20 with a 7.4 average finish. Let's look at his practice speeds. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, are these spikes. I mean, he goes from a 30.7 to a 31.7. That's almost a second fall off in that one lap. What caused it? Without having in-car camera of every driver and watching every lap of every driver, it's kind of hard to say. That could have easily been he came in to the pits for an adjustment. That could have been something on the track happened in front of him, a slower car, he was trying to pass. It's hard to say. It's one blip, not overly concerning. Now, his average line is slightly above average until we kind of get to lap 20, where he kind of gets back below the average. So long run speed seems to be pretty good with Denny Hamlin's car. Fire off speed's pretty good. A little middle tier, but that's kind of hard to say if that was maybe he was following somebody or trying a different line. It's a little hard to say. I think Denny Hamlin's going to be perfectly fine, though. All right, if we take his average finish of 8th, because his history is about a 7. The last 5 have been, I think, what did I say? 10th. Let's give him an 8th. And I did go back and look at his average fast laps and laps led. It's 25 and 40. With that being said, I mean, it's 52.25. It's above the top 15 points, but at 10,100, we need more than that from Denny Hamlin. To be in the optimal, what we think would be 55 plus. Okay, so let's kind of play with the numbers a little bit. If Denny Hamlin goes and finishes 2nd, well, that's 64.25. If he goes and really screws it up and finishes 21st, 24.25. That takes him out of optimal and takes him out of the top 15. Denny Hamlin's pretty consistent here. I think the 8th place finish is, potentially okay. He's got to lead some laps, though, to do that. And Denny tends to lead laps, at least in the middle of these races, into stage 2, towards the end of stage 1, give or take. Can he be there at the end? Maybe. I think he's definitely one of the 5 or 6 drivers that I would think could have the best shot at winning. Either way, I think Denny Hamlin's potentially safe, so you can mix and match Denny Hamlin into your lineups. All right, William Byron, 9,900 starting from the pole. He was in the 2nd practice, and his speed was really good. 6th in short or 1 lap speed, 4th in 10 lap consecutive average. Remember, Group 2 is the slower of the 2 groups. William Byron does have 1 win here. He should have had probably 2 until Joey Logano knocked them out of the way. He has an average finish of 9.8 and a 6.2 average running position, which I think might be the best average running position of everyone we've looked at. 8.4, 6.2. So he and Tyler Reddick have the best average running position. So kind of keep that in mind. He does have the 1 win, and he's in the playoffs, so he's in pretty good shape. He can kind of go out and try to lead some stages and do those types of things. All right, his fire-off speed was really, really good. And then he starts to fall off towards the backside. And that's kind of what I'm saying about, yes, he's got the pole. I think William Byron could easily fire off, go and lead the first 15 to 20 laps. Then we start to get a little bit into the danger zone, and does a Denny Hamlin starting in 3rd make his way back up to a William Byron and potentially go and lead some laps also. Now the nice thing is the pole winner, which William Byron does get the first choice of pit stalls. They will take the very last pit stall, the furthest one down the track. It's not far to get from his pit stall to the line. So William Byron will have the opportunity to make up track position in the pits, and also the 24 team is one of the top 3 pit crews. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, the Kyle Larson pit crew has been swapped with the Justin Haley pit crew. And everybody's like, was Justin Haley's pit crew that great? Yes and no. It's chemistry. And, they see some things. And then it wasn't the entire pit crew. I think the right rear tire changer and the gas man stayed the same in the 5. But everybody else from the 7 team came to the 5 team. Remember, Hendrick leases out pit crews to Spire. It's kind of a sister team, kind of like 2311 and Joe Gibbs. But either way, the 5 team has a new pit crew. The 24 team's pit crew has been very good. They have the choice of pit stall selection. They chose the one right at the end of pit road. They should be able to make up track position. So, with that being said, let's run the scenario of stage 1. William Byron goes out, fires off quick, leads the first 20 laps. Denny Hamlin catches him, leads for another 20 laps. Then everybody decides to start coming in pitting. William Byron's pit crew does a great job. He gets out first, now leads again, falls off a little bit. Denny Hamlin, or maybe somebody else who had a really good pit stop, comes up and leads a little. So I think William Byron could easily lead laps. 25 on the, probably, my guess, on the low end. And that could be just if he leads that first stage for a while and then just doesn't get back to the lead again. His average finish of 8th gives him a 42. A little bit more risky starting from the pole. Now, what happens if William Byron goes and finishes in second? Well, that's 54. That's real close to the optimal. And that's a little bit tougher, but like I said, he's got the optimal pit stop. He's starting from the pole, and he'll get a chance to lead a few laps. All right, let's go back to him finishing in, what did I say, 8th? Now, let's take his lead laps, or laps led, and let's go to 65. That puts him up to 52. That makes it a little bit more reasonable, even if he happens to fall to 8th. So, we're going to need to see a little bit of dominator out of William Byron to make it worth a real play. Now, he goes out and leads more than that, or has more fast laps, things change a little bit. And he'll have the opportunity to have a little bit more fast laps because in that first stage, he'll go out and more than likely lead from the start. And typically from that spot, you're not having to deal with other cars and other traffic. So easily, potentially could get some more fast laps than this. And all that kind of plays in. Do I think he could lead a lot more laps. There are other drivers that I think, like a Denny Hamlin or Tyler Reddick, that could potentially lead quite a few. So he's in play. He's not a strong play. He's probably like 5th or 6th. He's right there on the edge of what I am going to really, really target. So if I'm running 80 lineups and I run 35 of Kyle Larson, I'm probably going to look at running 20 to 25 of William Byron. So not a complete fade, but not super heavy either. All right, Ryan Blaney, 9,700, who does not have a win here, and he's had just awful luck here at this track. Because as we've seen, he's our kind of control car that we're looking at when we're looking at other drivers and their practice speeds on the plot graph. He was decent in practice, 13th and 10th, starting in the 9th position. Can he just get a finish? 37th in the fall race and 37th or 38th in the spring race because Martin Truex Jr. ruined his day pretty early. So Brian Blaney, risky because his average finishes are not good here. But his practice speeds, like I said, he was the control car. Carson Hocevar, who was the fastest in the first group, I put him in against Ryan Blaney just to kind of show you the fastest guy. And, Carson Hocevar actually has got pretty good speed, but we'll get to him in a minute. But Ryan Blaney, long run speed, faster than Carson, starting in the 9th position. Can Lady Luck shine slightly on here? Because if Ryan Blaney just finishes his average position and still leads some laps or has some fast laps, so let's look at something maybe a little bit more realistic. With Ryan Blaney not having bad luck. Let's say he finishes 5th. But let's say he only leads, let's say he doesn't lead any laps and has 15 fast laps. Well, 49.75. We're closer to the optimal. So I think Ryan Blaney's still in play. I kind of put him right there with William Byron. The one thing I do like about Ryan Blaney, his practice speeds and long run speeds, which is kind of the case for Penske, is very good. So if we can get long green flag runs, I think Ryan Blaney becomes a real factor. Ryan Blaney's had trouble with getting tied up in other people's stuff. Ryan Blaney's also blown 2 engines this year. Ryan Blaney was also fastest at Miami, high tire wear track, until his engine blew. And he showed this kind of speed in practice. Ryan Blaney's definitely in play. That's why, Andrew, when you ask if you're still there about dominators, you kind of have, you're going to have to pick and choose between, I think, the 5 or 6 guys that we've already talked about. Any of those are really, truly probably the guys that I'd look at for being dominators. But of course, racing's racing. I mean, all it takes is one bad pit stop, and the crew doesn't put the tire on, and you're down 2 laps. What happened to me last weekend at Martinsville? I would have had a unbelievable weekend if Shane Van Gisbergen had literally just stayed only 1 lap down. But because there hasn't been any consistent driver here. Consistent? No. Reddick consistently seems to run up front. Larson consistently seems to run up front. It's the same group. Different verse, different course, different track. But it's the same. It's pretty much the same kind of group. Ryan Blaney's just had bad luck. He's had really decent fast cars and just had bad luck. Do we think that bad luck continues? I don't know. I think it's a flip of a coin, to be perfectly honest. Ryan Blaney's probably looking for a little bit of a rebound race after what's happened, blown engines, and not having great speed at Martinsville. He's probably looking for a little bit of a bounce back. Does he overdrive it? I don't think so. Ryan Blaney's pretty smart. So I think Ryan Blaney is definitely right there kind of with the William Byron. Christopher Bell started from the pole yesterday. I thought Christopher Bell yesterday was going to be just an absolute dominator. I thought he was going to go out and just smoke everybody, and that just didn't turn out quite right. So, I mean, once again, consistency, $9,500. Second group, he was slow. 29th in single lap, 36th in 10 lap average. I mean, that's 2 from last. Starting in the 17th position. This is not one of Christopher Bell's best tracks, but it's not one of his worst either. He doesn't have a win here. He's only got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, and 4 top 20s. So he's kind of in that realm of finishing 11th, 12th, or 13th, which is kind of where he's starting. He finished 3rd in the spring race or fall race last year. Can he get up there and play? It's a little more risky in my opinion, because when we really look at his averages on lap times, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. Number one, he's slower than the average, and it gets real jagged, which means he's really searching for something and is not finding it. In the meantime, he's beating up his tires. So, unlike Larson, who's starting in 19th, Bell starting in 17th, Larson's line is, number one, better than average, and number 2, way more consistent. This is a little too more jagged than I want to see, so I'm probably going to be a little bit of a fade off on Christopher Bell. Because he's got the place differential and he has fast lap potential, I'm not sure he's got lap lead potential. Not saying it's impossible, but I don't really love it. So if we take the lap lead out and we take this down because he's going to be in traffic most of the day, take it to 15. Well, that's 44.75 at 9,500. That's under what we're looking for that price tag for optimal. Does it put him in the potential top 15? Yeah. So this is a quintessential cash play, in my opinion. Christopher Bell, if you're playing in cash tournaments, I think Christopher Bell definitely needs to be there. I would kind of tie him and Larson together for cash plays, and then start building from there. Both of them have good place differential. Both of them have decent potential upside in finishing maybe top 10. Maybe not leading a ton of laps, maybe not having a ton of fast laps, but easily being there and getting a decent day. So this is kind of what I consider to be much more of a cash play. not a huge tournament play because I don't know if he gets up there and becomes a dominator. So, and at 9,500, you almost kind of need that dominator potential, and I just did not see it in practice or qualifying speed. Joey Logano. I mean, there's a ton of guys starting 17th, 18th, and 19th that all should end up with decent days. Joey Logano, 9,700. In the last 5 races, he does not have a win, but he did finish in first in the spring of 2022, where he bumped William Byron out of the way. And hold on 1 second for me. All right, family came home and got the dogs and shut the door. So back to peace and quiet. Not that dogs were bad, but Joey Logano starting 7th. So we have Christopher Bell starting in 17th, Joey Logano starting in 18th, Kyle Larson starting in 19th. All have potential upside. Once again, Joey Logano's practice speeds were 34th and 30th in practice too, so not great practice speeds. His average finish is pretty good. So if we look at his practice, and this is really well. This is the type of stuff that I look at and go, okay, you are really struggling with the handling in your car. He is all over the place. And this looks like a heartbeat, not a. This is erratic. His final speeds were above 32, where the average really never even gets to 32. So Joe Logano definitely struggled in practice. If we take his average finish of 12th, but let's say he does not lead any laps, takes him to 40.15, which barely puts him in the top 15, much less at 9,300. Do I think this is a great play? So I don't love this play. I think Joey Logano probably gets a fair amount of ownership because of his starting spot, but I'm probably going to be a fade off of Joey Logano. Not saying the Penske team is smart. Joey's a smart driver. Joey does have 1 win here, and he finishes consistently kind of near the top 10. Definitely top 20. So not going to lose a ton of place differential, but I just don't know if he could potentially get up there and lead laps and win this race. Not saying that at all, but I'm basing all this on averages, and this is kind of where I go and start to build lineups and go, all right, what is the average result? Then I go, okay, is there something that gut feeling? This is where your gut feeling starts to come in. This is where betting happens. Do I think Joey Logano? Am I willing to take a shot on Joey Logano going up and finishing top 3? Let's say he finishes in 2nd. And if that happens, he's probably going to have some fast laps. He's probably going to lead some laps. So at this point, we can go, let's say, 20 laps led. Well, if we think that's the case, he's definitely in the optimal range. But do I think Joey Logano gets up and finishes 2nd? Sure, in a few. And I'm not saying I'm going to be completely faded off of him, but if I'm running 80 lineups, I'm probably going to run him in, 18 to 20 of those 80 lineups. So 20%. So I think he could easily go, though. I think that may be a decent percentage for Joey Logano. Where I think Christopher Bell is probably going to be closer to the 25 or 30%, and I'll probably be about the same on ownership with Joey and Christopher Bell. Now, I will have a lot more Kyle Larson because Kyle Larson rips the fence a lot better than these guys, and his pit crew's a little bit better. Chase Briscoe, 9,100. Starting in 4th, our winner from the fall race. He was in a Ford. He was in a Stewart-Haas car, which is quite interesting that they were able to pull off that win. Chase Briscoe's averages, in the lower teens. Starting in 4th, his practice speeds were okay. He fell off a little more than I would have liked to have seen. Let's look at his practice speeds. Yeah, he at about lap 12, he starts to really struggle with the handling and the tires. So this part kind of concerns me a little bit. And along with his average finishes and his starting position, I'm going to be a fade off of Chase Briscoe, and let's look at why. So if he starts 4th, finishes 13th, he's only looking at a 25-point day, and that's with potentially a couple laps led and fast laps. Let's say if that happens and he doesn't lead any laps, we're now down to 23.7. Yeah, and this is kind of why I like this chart, because this really kind of shows you if he just hits his average, it's not going to be a good DraftKings day for him. Now, is this an okay finish for him in the race with a new team? Sure. Decent points day. Maybe he gets some, top 10s and stage finishes. Yeah, that's a solid points day. I'm not looking for a solid points day in DraftKings. I'm looking for what's going to put me in the optimal. And I don't know if Chase Briscoe puts me in the optimal or in the top 15. So I'm probably going to be fade off of Chase Briscoe. So when I'm looking at building, which 15 drivers am I going to put in? When I say I'm not going to be a 0, but I'm probably going to be 5% on Chase Briscoe. I'll build a couple of like Joe Gibbs type Toyota lineups just in case the Toyotas hit on something. And that rarely ever happens. It's kind of a waste. I put that one in like one of the $1 or 25-cent lineups, and if it hits, then you end up winning. But I'm not putting it in the $4 Chrome Horn tournament. Chase Elliott, $9,000, starting 15th, 21st, and 23rd, and 2nd practice session, the slower one of the two. Finished 11th in. Why did that happen? Why did my PowerPoint freeze? That's never good. All right, come back to me. PowerPoint's not responding. Everything else is running fine. That's never good. All right. Oh, restart. Hey, kind of love when we have technical issues. Either way, let's see. 14th place average finish, 19.1 average running position. All right, there we go. Haven't had that happen before in the stream. 19.1 average running position, 13.8 total average, starting 15th. It's kind of a finish where you start type of race. Let's look at. I do like his, other than this little spot, but maybe that was just a small slip at the beginning of his run. He's right there with the average line. Almost over top of it the entire way. So, but a good average run is probably, you're not going to move through the field a whole lot. You're going to have to do something a little different on strategy. Now, he's got some place differential potential here, but if he has 14 fast laps, and if he happens to get up and lead 18 laps, which I don't know if really, truly, so let's take that down to 0. Well, now you're barely making the top 15. I don't know. I'm kind of, with Chase Elliott, I'm kind of in the same ballpark I am with Chase Briscoe. So both the Chases, I'm going to fade. Not a complete fade, though. So where I think they're going to be probably in the 15-20% ownership range, I'm probably going to be kind of closer to the 5% range, maybe 10%. So, Chase Elliott will probably get thrown into a, like I said, with Chase Briscoe in a Toyota lineup. I'll have Chase Elliott in kind of a Chevy or Hendrick style lineup. KFB, Kyle Busch, 8,800, starting in 8th. His practice, good qualifying spot for Kyle Busch. 25th and 17th in the slower of the two practice sessions. 12.3 average running position. He did finish 2nd in the fall race last year, just behind Chase Briscoe. And 13.7. Let's look at his practice speeds. They were pretty good. Not far off from Blaney, and still a little bit below the average. So very consistent, decent long run speed for Kyle Busch. He's got 1 win out of 26 total starts, 18 top 20s, starting in 8th. All right, So if we go down here, starting in 8th, finishes 13th, but has 25 laps led, 37.1. All right, let's play with the numbers a little bit. What do we need out of Kyle Busch? Can he go and get another second place finish? And can he lead those 25 laps? If that happens, we're at a 60.1. If he gets his averages, takes him just barely in the top 15 in points. Coin flip. And that's kind of where I'll be. I will probably be slightly more ownership in Kyle Busch than Chase Elliott or Chase Briscoe, but I'm probably more looking at about the 10% range for Kyle Busch. Don't love it, don't hate it. It's definitely a flip of the coin. The last, 3 races for Kyle Busch have been about miserable. So, with that being said, take your shot. If you think that it's a play, then play it. If you don't. All right, Ross Chastain starting in 25th. This is actually one of Ross's better tracks. His average finish is 13.7, which is not 14th. His average running position is 13.7. He did finish 5th in the fall race. He has won truck races here. He's had decent finishes at this track. In the last 5 races, he's got 4 top 20s, starting 25th. Decent amount of place differential here. Ross is also probably going to be decently owned. Practice speeds were pretty consistent with the average until about lap 20-21, where he had a 32 plus, and then he jumps back up into the 32s again. So long run speed, not super great with Ross. Not super far off, but this is a little concerning towards the end. But starting in 25th, and if we get to his average finish of 14th, I don't think he lead many laps by doing that. So let's zero that out. And kind of where does that give us? It takes us to a 48.1. Well, what do we need? How much do we need out of him? Let's say he gets up to 8th. Well, that's a 61. That definitely puts him into the discussion of the optimal range. And at 8,600, you may not need a full 61 point. So if we go back and look at this, there was a race right here where you had Brad and Ty Gibbs both in that $8,000 to $9,000 range with 64 points. Well, let's go back to our boy Ross here. If he can finish 8th and have 18 fast laps, maybe a little much from that far back. Let's bump him down to like 10. 57.5. That still puts him real close to that and puts him into that, what I consider to be optimal points. So Ross probably also will be decently heavily owned. I expect Ross to be in the 20-25% range. I will probably be slightly overweight with Ross. All right, Bubba Wallace next in line here at $8,500, starting in the 5th position, 20th in single lap, 15th in 10 lap consecutive average. This is a track that Bubba really likes to run. An 8.8 average finishing position with a 9.7 average running position. 16th in the fall race last year. His 13 total starts, he's got an 18.3, which is not awful for Bubba Wallace's history. Let's look at his practice speeds. Practice speeds were, you can almost draw a line over the average and Bubba Wallace. So good average speed. Starting in 5th, kind of think that he kind of runs there for most of the day. If he finishes in 9th, and leads 12 laps, which is possible, starting in 5th, you go and lead a few laps, 36.75. Now, if he goes and finishes 3rd, 48.75. Now, I have lowered the optimal threshold once we got to $8,500 down to 48. He, at this point, if he can finish 3rd, he just hits the optimal lap. Could be still potentially in the top 15. It is a risky play starting in 5th. So this, I'll probably be 10-15% ownership and Bubba Wallace. Not super heavy, not super light. I think I kind of put him maybe in a couple of those Toyota type lineups with Tyler Reddick. Bubba Wallace could easily go out and lead, 40, 50 laps and win this thing. He's been really, really consistent this year. They have just continually improved throughout the year, and it's way better than they had last year. So this point total is very, very possible, and potentially even more out of Bubba Wallace. So maybe I get closer to 20% ownership on Bubba. Hard to say. Alex Bowman, woo-wee, starting in 33rd. This is not one of Alex Bowman's better tracks, by the way. He was 31st in single lap, and he was in the first group also. So 31st in single lap, 35th in 10 lap consecutive average. First group is supposed to be faster than the second group. He's got an average finish of 17.5 and an average running position of 18.1. It really puts him back here in the muck. It's going to be tough to get anywhere. And he was very, very ragged at the beginning of his run, and then he kind of got a little bit better. And he actually got a little bit better than Ryan Blaney even at about lap 20. But the problem is if you're back in 33rd and you don't have a good solid car under you, it's going to be a long day. Definitely not going to lead any laps. Let's take the laps led out of this. And okay, maybe you've got 6th and you finish 18th. Well, that's 42.7. What do we need for... What happens if he gets to 12th? 54.7. Okay, that puts him... So we're going to need a top 15, probably? Yeah, top 15 out of Alex Bowman. His average finish is 18th. Practice speeds were average. It's going to be a long day. Don't hate it, don't love it. I think he gets a ton of ownership because of his place differential, and he's had a really good start to the year. Sure, this is all possible. Don't get me wrong. Why won't that go away? I mean, I'm not going to fade Alex Bowman. Yeah. Am I going to be super heavy on him? Probably not. Probably 15, 20%, somewhere in that range. All right, Chris Buescher, next in line here. Had a 6th place finish, and he was in the hunt to win this race in the spring until he and Tyler Reddick decided to fight over the same piece of real estate and let Brad Keselowski get the win. 8,100 starting in 14th. Practice speeds were pretty good considering he was in the second practice session, 15th and 16th, very consistent. And kind of real consistent with his average finishes. 15th place average finish, 15.6 average running position, 16.6 average finish out of his 15 total starts. He's only got one top 5, but a third of the time he's finishing in the top 10, and 2/3 of the time he's finishing in the top 20. Practice speeds were not anything really to write home about. It was in the second group. Okay. So, I don't love it. Don't hate it. This is a little higher than I wanted to see. But it was one lap, so not completely abnormal. Let's see. If we start in 14th, finish in 15th, I don't think you lead any laps by doing that. So let's take that out. That puts him in a 29.75. That does not put him in the top 15. So you can take a couple shots on Chris Buescher because he has had speed in the past here, but I think I'm probably going to be more on the fade side than the take side. Brad Keselowski starting in 20th. Actually, decent practice speeds. He was in the faster group. 10th on single lap, 3rd on 10 lap consecutive average. Probably where he should be. He does have one win, which was the spring race last year. It was warm that day. I was there. It was like 80, 82 degrees, very sunny. So probably very similar to what we're going to see for this race. Over the last 5 races here at Darlington, though, in the next gen era, Brad Keselowski's got a 6.4 average finish, which is better than what his full history at 10.7 is saying. Starting in 20th, do we think Brad can have a bounce back? He needs a bounce back. He needs to have a good race. Now, his practice speeds were a little bit like Chris Buescher's. I mean, he fired off fast, which he should in the first practice session. Then he got a little more inconsistent. He was below the average line, but like I said, the averages from J.J. Yaley to Ryan Blaney or Carson Hocevar, who fired off extremely fast, or even a Brad Keselowski who fired off fast. Starting in 20th, he's kind of stuck in the muck a little bit. It's going to take some time to get up there. I don't think he's going to lead any laps. So let's take the laps led out of this. I think he probably has some fast laps. I mean, he might lead some laps if he gets up towards the end of the race and has a little luck go his way. But let's say he gets his average finish of 8th. Well, that's 52.05. That's 7,500. That's definitely in play. Brad's probably a really good, solid cash play, and I'll have him in some tournaments. I think he might be slightly underowned. But he also might be slightly overowned because he did win this race 1 year ago. Josh Berry, $7,800, starting in 24th. He was second. He was in the first group. Keep that in mind. Second fast in single lap, first in 10 lap consecutive average. He did 32 total laps. His average running position is not the best here, but he did finish second in this race 1 year ago. The last race in the fall, though, he finished 31st. 21.3 average finish, starting in 24th. All right, let's look at his practice speeds. They should be very quick. Yep, he fired off very, very quick. He fired off here. He definitely fired off very quick. Kind of crosses over at about lap 11, then comes back, and then the fall off when the rubber really kind of got taken into the track. He starts to slow up here, and he stopped at this point at 27 laps. So it's kind of hard to say where he would have gone if he would have come back down again. But definitely faster than the average, definitely fired off faster than Ryan Blaney, starting in the 24th position. Josh Berry's also shown really, really good speed so far out of the 21 car. He did win Las Vegas, which is a decently high tire wear track situation. Tires are going to be very similar to this. I think Josh Berry gets around and stays at the end. This says his average finish of 21st, puts him at 28.9. Where do I think he realistically finishes if things go his way? I think he gets to, let's say, a 10th. I don't think he leads any laps. Let's take that out, but I think he's got potential of 11 fast laps. 52.9. I mean, that puts him above what I consider to be optimal for this price range. Definitely in the top 15. I really do like the Josh Berry play today. So Josh Berry is in my group of 15 that I will be targeting. Austin Cindric will not be. Austin Cindric, $7,700, starting in 6th. His average running position is 20.9. His average finish is 19.8. He finished 13th in the fall race here last year. Let's look at his practice speeds, because none of his averages are really that good for starting in 6th. He's very ragged, way more ragged, but the fire-off speed in Group 1 was very quick, and then things became they weren't bad. He stays under the average. It's not bad, not great. Yeah, I mean, his average finish is 19th. He's starting in 6th. It's a 15.2 day. Let's say he doesn't lead any laps. And let's say he gets a 12th place finish. What does that give us? 27.7. That's still not good enough. I'm going to be a fade on Austin Cindric. So, don't like the play. Eric Jones, starting in 34th. Eric Jones will be heavily owed this week. $7,500, starting in 34th. He was first practice, much faster. Third in single lap, 7th in 10 lap consecutive average. He does have 1 win here in the last 5 races, 2 total wins at this track. This is Eric Jones, one of his favorite tracks to race at. So the mindset's always really good. Question is, can he get the car that he needs underneath him? Well, his fire-off speed was pretty good. Then he slows up, gets a little ragged, and then falls below the average. Starting in 34th, though, this isn't awful. It's not bad. Eric Jones and the 43 team are going to be willing to throw some different strategies in to get him more into the mix. So Eric Jones starts 34th, finishes 14th. That's probably not where he's going to be leading any laps. So let's take that out. And we'll give him a few extra fast laps because he's going to have some different strategy. Let's go to 12. 54.4. That's definitely putting him in the optimal lineup range. Buyer beware, he's going to be heavily owned. I will have a decent amount of ownership in Eric Jones. Just FYI. Ty Gibbs, $7,400 starting 11th. Good run for Ty Gibbs last week. Was in the second practice session, so he was in the slower group, and he still fired off pretty good. 8th in single lap, 11th in 10 lap consecutive average. The spring race last year, he was really, really fast. Led some laps. Was in the mix most of the day. I can't remember where he ended up finishing. Sorry, I was looking at Rumble. I had a new chat. It looks like it may be spam. Not too concerned about that either way. 14.8 average finish total for 5 races. He does have one top 5. I think that was in the spring of last year. I think he finished like 3rd. Practice speeds were, started off really fast, especially in the second group, and then just kind of follows right along the average. So good average speed, starting at 11th. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's look what he can potentially do. If he gets his average finish at 15th, 28.9. Not really what we need. So this is probably more realistic, and I don't think he'd lead any laps. So that's going to make things even worse. So 27.15 if he finishes in 15th. Now, if we think maybe he has a much better day, let's say he's able to sneak out a 9th, 40.15. Puts him potentially in the top 15, does not really put him close to the optimal lineup that we might need. What's he going to need to do to get closer to that optimal? Can he finish in 4th? Yeah, that puts him probably pretty close. Flip a coin on Ty Gibbs. I don't mind the play, don't love the play. I still need to see more consistency. Now, they did just hire a new car chief, not crew chief, a new car chief. So the crew chief was the Xfinity chief from last year that won all those races in the 19 car. And now they've got the new car chief, who was Kevin Harvick's car chief when Kevin Harvick won like those 9 or 10 races. He was a longtime car chief for Kevin Harvick. So they're putting the puzzle pieces together for Ty Gibbs to start to run more consistent. That's not an overnight cure by any means. Does it help the confidence out? Potentially. Do we think Ty Gibbs can run top 10 and potentially get to maybe a 4th? Maybe. I'm probably going to be in the same ballpark as a Ryan Blaney type of ownership or a Christopher Bell type of ownership. I'm going to have him. I'm not going to be super heavy on it till I see more consistency. One race does not make consistency. Ryan Preece, though, has been firing off and getting top 10s all season so far. So good on Ryan Preece. Being at RFK has really kind of given him a new life. $7,200 starting in 2nd. His practice speeds in the second practice session were not bad. 11th and 12th. His average finish here is not awful either at an 18th place average finish. His average running position's not great, so he's overperforming his average running position. He did finish 12th in the fall race last year. And that's all in RFK cars. Now, before that, he was in other stuff. So this is probably a little more consistent. I think he actually improves on this slightly. Let's look at his practice speeds. He was in the second group, fires off okay, and stays kind of right there, just slightly slower than Blaney, better than the average, so not bad. Ryan Preece is also another one of those that's going to be really good at tire wear conserving. Coming from the modified series, you kind of have to be. The problem is he's starting in second, and I don't know if we're at a point yet where we see Ryan Preece go out and lead, I don't know, 50, 60 laps and get a second place finish this week. I think he ends up potentially having a better day than 18th, so I think he probably maybe gets to 9th. And we'll even say he gets 20 laps led. I mean, that's 35.25. At 7,200, that's just on the cusp of being in the top 15 points. I kind of need more than that, though. So, let's say he just has a great day, and he leads 40 laps. And if that's the case, you're probably going to have 11 or so fast laps. So that's a 55. If we think Ryan Preece can stay in the top 5 and lead some laps, 50.9. That's definitely in the optimal range. It's a risky play. It's probably going to be not super owned. It's probably going to be under 10% ownership. This could be a sneaky play if you think Ryan Preece can have a solid day. I think there's potential. I just don't love the play by any means. So kind of keep that in mind. It's going to take a little luck. But RFK cars have run really, really well at this track. Brad Keselowski won last year. Chris Buescher literally could have potentially had a win, or Tyler Reddick, but they decided to fight over that same piece of real estate. So Ryan Preece should end up with a pretty decent day. Maybe you kind of take the sneaky pick. Maybe you don't think he's the high-end optimal, but at 7,200, it's sneaky, and people are going to be like, "Ooh, he's starting second. That's too high up for me." So I don't think you pair him with a William Byron. I don't know if that plays super well either. So and it's very risky to take the first and second qualifier and put them in the same lineups. I have learned that over time. But putting him in with a Kyle Larson and a Brad Keselowski type of lineup definitely frees you up to do pretty much almost anything you want at that point. Well, not really, but you could potentially even run him with a Denny Hamlin. Maybe they finish 1-2 or 2-3. All right. So I don't mind taking some shots on Ryan Preece. It could be very sneaky. Noah Gragson, 26th, 19th and 5th in the first group. 24th place average finish, 22.2 average running position, finished 32nd. Not going to read too much into the 32nd because Stuart Haas, other than Chase Briscoe, was awful. Practice speeds were okay, then they kind of fall off a cliff. So by lap 20, Noah Gragson was really struggling. Now, they'll make some adjustments. They'll be better than that. But starting in 26, average finishing position 24th at a 20.9. I mean, I'm not going to be a complete fade, but I'm not going to be on heavy ownership with Noah. I think it's going to be really tough for him to get to this top 15. Let's see, what does this give us? Let's say he is able to sneak out a 14th. 41.9. Kind of puts him right in the middle. Doesn't really put him into optimal, but at 7,100, it potentially could play. I don't love it. Don't hate it. Coin flip. Carson Hocevar starting in 13th. He's got a 25.3 average finish, and he finished 33rd here in the fall race. Carson Hocevar was super fast in the first group. He was one of the first cars to hit the track. He is consistently doing that, consistently having extremely fast practice laps, and then he fell off. He went to almost 32 and a half. But he was pretty consistent with the average line, but he should have been faster than the average line. Starting in 13th, though, for him to become a better play than a Noah or a Ryan Preece. What's he going to need to do? Well, I want this to show up. There it is. 23rd. We're going to need to have him finish 7th. 44.3. Kind of right in the middle. Kind of gives him a 10th, 11th, 12th place finish. If you think he can make it to 7th. I think the struggles continue, and I think he maybe he gets to a 15th, but 15th only gives you 27.35. And that's with having a couple fast laps. I'm probably going to be a fan on Carson Hocevar this week. He's been too inconsistent for me to really, really like it a whole lot. AJ Allmendinger, 6,900. Starting in 22nd, average finish of 18th. That's only 2 races. Sample size is not huge. He's got a 25th place average finish. He's never finished in the top 10 ever at Darlington. Kind of concerning, but he is a road course ringer. His practice speeds were not great in the first practice group, which should have been a little bit faster. Let's look at those practice speeds. I mean, I don't see anything real drastic here. Is a little bit better than the average, but he needs to be better than the average being in the first group. If he starts 22nd, finishes 20th, has a couple fast laps, 25.9. Well, that's not enough. How far up does he need to go? Can he finish 13th? That puts him close to the top 15 in points. That puts him in the top 15 in points. If he gets to 10th, that definitely kind of puts him close to the optimal lineup range. I'm not saying it's an all-out fade, but I think he kind of finishes and starts in the same ballpark. High teens, maybe 20th, and I just don't think that's going to be enough. So not a complete fade, just in case we have something miraculous happens and you get to top 10. But I'm also not going to be heavy owned. Probably closer to 5%. Maybe there'll be single-digit percentage ownership for me with AJ. Daniel Suarez, $6,800. Starting in 30th, 18th in both single lap and 10 lap consecutive average. Pretty consistent there. His average finishes, though, here are not great. 25.6 average finish, 22.6 average running position. The question is, can Daniel Suarez get out of his way and everybody else's way? I do like his long run. Very consistent. No real drastic ups and downs. Just pretty consistent throughout the entire run. All right, if we think he gets to 23rd, starts in 30th. Okay. 27.35. How far up the chart does Daniel Suarez need to get for us to have more? 17th? Maybe 18th? He gets up to 15th or 16th? That puts him pretty close. 15th puts him even closer if he gets to 12th. 12th definitely puts him in the optimal lineup discussion. But I think more realistically, I think it's going to be a 15th, 17th, 16th place day. 42.3. I think it puts him in the top 15 in point totals. But it's not a super huge day. But it's 6,800. We may or may not need a whole lot out of Daniel. I just need you to get a little bit better than your average finish. Trackhouse is decent here. Ross just really likes this place. So can Daniel learn a little bit from Ross and get a 16th place finish? Yeah, I'll have some shots on that. Michael McDowell, would you quit qualifying so well? Because you just don't ever finish close to that. And I wish I could take some Michael McDowell. He's consistently kind of that, on these ovals, a low teen, middle teen finish. Well, starting in 10th, there's no room. I don't think he goes up and leads a bunch of laps. I don't think he has a ton of fast laps. his practice speeds were a little inconsistent, a little ragged. Starts in 10th. If he finishes 22nd, it's only 10 points. Even if he goes and finishes where he starts in a 10th, it's 36.7. It's just barely in the top 15 point total. Definitely not in the optimal lineup total. I'm a fade on Michael McDowell. I'm glad he qualifies well, but he just doesn't race there. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at $6,500 starting in 28th. First practice session, the faster of practice sessions. He was 7th in single lap, then fell off to 28th. So practice speeds are probably going to be pretty ragged when we look at them. 21.8 average finished 22nd, and his total full race history's got a 22.6 average finish. Let's look at his practice speeds. Fired off quick and kind of got a little ragged, and then only did 24 total laps of practice. So not super impressed there, especially being in the first group. You need to be below the average because you're supposed to be in the faster group. Let's say you just go get the average finish. Well, that's 27.35. I'm not sure that that's enough. How far up the leaderboard does Ricky need to get to make this a play? 17th puts it in the ballpark. Really, 13th would put him closer to what we need to see for 6,500. You could possibly get 15th. 42.35. That puts him in the top 15. I don't know if Ricky Stenhouse gets to a top 15. He has never finished in the top 10. He's finished once in the top 10, not in the next gen era, and 2 out of only 5 races that he's finished in the top 20. So really, really risky play. I don't think I'll have much ownership there. Austin Dillon starting in 23rd at $6,300. First practice session, he was 9th and 9th. So pretty consistent there. It'll be interesting to see what his practice speeds look like. And no top 10s in the last 5 races at Darlington, but 3 top 20s. So a little bit better than Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He did finish 15th in the fall race. Can he repeat that for the spring race? Well, let's look at his practice speeds. He's pretty good being in the first practice session, but then kind of gets a lot more ragged and slower once the rubber really kind of got built into the track. And then he just stops there at about lap 26, 27. Not great, not bad. If he gets his average finish, that puts him at a 30.9. And I think that's probably, I think his high-end potential might be a 12th. So if we think he can get to his high-end potential, that puts him at a 42.9. That's still not as good as like a Daniel Suarez. I'm willing to take more shots than Daniel Suarez. Now, will I have 5% ownership in Austin Dillon? Probably. But I'm not going to be super heavily owned. Justin Haley, remember they just flipped pit crews, so if you think he got the better end of the deal, who knows? I don't think so. Because the 5 team does not do things without thinking long and hard before they do them. So I think the 5 team probably got the better pit crew. First practice session, he was 5th and then 20th. He's got an average finish of 17.4, which is better than his average running position of 24.6. He did finish 27th here in the fall race last year. And his total 8 starts, he's got a 17.9. So he gets to an 18th. Really inconsistent lap times. Wow. That's really inconsistent. I'm not sure what caused that for Justin, but that's wackadoodle. I don't like that at all. So I probably won't have much Justin Haley. I don't like those practice speeds. But let's say he does pull out an 18th place finish, 30.25. Not sure that's going to be enough to get him in the top 15, or much less in the optimal. And the optimal has come down a little bit here to 40 because his price has come down. We don't need as many points. We don't need a ton of laps led. We don't need, we just need a good, consistent, solid finish. So for him to have that, how far up the leaderboard will he need to go? Can 12th get him there? 12th gets him close. So if you think Justin Haley can get to 12th, he's a possible play. I'm probably going to be mostly a fade on that. Probably the same as Todd Gillen, starting in the 12th position, 27th and 27th, and that was in the faster practice session. 20.9 average running position, 19.4 average finish, 17th in the fall race last year. I mean, he's got good, decent finishes, high teens. Practice speeds were in the first group were slow. And he just kind of gets caught up a little bit better here about lap 13 or 14. And of course, like everyone else, he really kind of falls off at about lap 30. The problem is he's starting in 12th. And if he gets his average finish, it's 17.9. Todd Gillen would be a decent play if this were reversed. If it was starting in 19th and finishing in 12th. But I'm not sure that that's going to be the case. So I'm a fade on the Todd Gillen play. Zane Smith starting in 16th. Average finish sample size is pretty small. It's 29th. Average running position is 30.6. He did finish 23rd in the fall race last year, but starting in 16th. Let's look at his practice speeds. He was in the second group, so the slower of the two groups. I mean, he's got actually pretty consistent, decent practice speeds, all things considered, especially being in the second group. That part I do like. I don't like the fact that he's starting in 16th. And if he gets his average, that's 0.45. So that's probably a definite fade. He's going to need to make the... He's going to have to finish top 10. Maybe, yeah. 11th puts him below. 10th puts him above. So he's going to need a top 10 finish. Do you think Zane Smith has got top 10 speed or top 10 potential for a track that he has an average finish of 29th? I don't think so. I'm probably going to be a fade. Austin Hill. He struggled yesterday in the Xfinity Series also. This is not one of his best tracks. And he's in a car that he's not super familiar with, but he is starting 37th, almost dead last. Maybe, his practice speeds, which I wouldn't think much more out of an Austin Hill coming into this car. He's not used to the shifters. He's not used to 5 speeds. He's not used to the wide tire. He's not. There's all sorts of different things. Let's say he gets to 27th. Even at 27th, 10 spots of place differential still only gives him 25. That doesn't put him in the top 15 in points. It does not give him the potential of getting to the optimal lineup. How far up the leaderboard can he get to 20th? 20th, if you think Austin Hill can finish in 20th in a part-time ride, non-chartered team, it is a Richard Childress car, I don't think so. So I'm a fade on Austin Hill. Cole Custer, $5,800 starting in 31st. Sample size is really small here, but he does have 14th place average finish over the last 5 races. 21.7 out of his 7 total starts in the Cup Series. Remember that most of that is in the last gen era. Only one start in the next gen era where he did the 14th place finish. He was in the first group, so it should be the faster of the group. He fired off really slow. I'm not sure what that was. But then gets okay, then has a little hiccup, and then gets okay again. Starting in 31st, though, if he can go get 21st, that's 31.9. I think Cole Custer's got a better shot than Austin Hill to gain 10 spots. And for him to get close to that optimal lineup, he's going to need to get to 14th, probably? 46.9. No, you don't even need to get that high. Can he get to 16th? Yeah. Do I think Cole Custer can get 16th? Good possibility. 17th still puts him there. 18th. So can Cole Custer get up to 18th at $5,800? This goes back to that play where you take 3 or 4 of the high-priced guys and a Cole Custer. Cole Custer's in play for me because I need some savings. And this is one of the few that I don't trust by any means. I don't trust any of these guys back here. But that I'm willing to take more of a shot on. So I'll have some ownership in Cole Custer. Riley Herbst has just been struggling on the non-super speedways in this 35 car. Okay, it's his rookie season. Give him a break. I get you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to want to take him in my Draftkings lineups. He was 34th, 36th and 33rd in practice. His practice speeds were, about where you would think they would be for a rookie. Kind of like Austin Hill. Not expecting a whole lot. He's starting in 32nd, though. If he gets to 27th, that's not enough. We're going to need Riley Herbst to go out and get to 20th? Nope. 17th. Yep. 18th. Can Riley Herbst gain 14 spots and finish in 18th? History tells me no. Anything's possible, though. I won't be a complete fade, but I will probably be closer to the 5% ownership range with Riley Herbst. John Hunter Nemechek starting in 27th, an average finish of 28th, average running position of 27.9, finished 25th in the fall. Boy, oh boy, everything kind of lines up for you to finish where you started. And he also was the only incident of practice where he did spin, and then that's where practice stopped for him. Did not wreck the car, did not have any issues, but they had to make some adjustments before qualifying. So, with that being said, not super great there. Start where you finish, you get a 20.8. John Hunter's also been running much better this year. I'm not starting in 27th. It's going to take too much for John Hunter to really get up there. He's going to need to get to 15th, 16th. He's going to need to get to 15th or 16th. Possible? Maybe. Averages? No. Did wreck in practice. Or did spin in practice, not wrecked. I'm kind of probably going to be in the same boat that I have Riley Herbst. Maybe 5%. Maybe a couple lineups, but not much. Maybe put him in that Toyota lineup. But yeah, not a whole lot of ownership. It's just, if he were starting 34th, maybe. But, or if he had a really good practice. John Hunter has started this year much, much better than he did last year. Still a lot of room to go. Shane Van Gisbergen, on the other hand, oh boy. I'm not sure what to make of Shane. I potentially am going to have some ownership. He fired off really decent. And then I'm not sure what happened here. Maybe that was just a lap that he was like, okay, I'm done practicing, and he needed to get back around. He was also in John Hunter's practice, so maybe once John Hunter wrecked on lap 10, it's hard to say. But, man, can Shane Van Gisbergen finish? He's going to need to finish at least 26. And that's at a 30.5. And that potentially puts him outside the top 15, but because of his price tag, could potentially put him in the optimal depending on how things go. That's a real long shot, and it's a real long shot for him to finish 26th. He did finish 26th in the fall race last year. I just need to see more data on ovals in the next-gen Cup Series car before I'm ready to do anything with Shane. The problem is he's not running on, a lot of these times when he was having these decent runs, he was running, 147 laps on Saturday and then coming over here and running another 200 and some odd laps in the Cup Series. It gave him a long time to adjust to the track, adjust to the car, adjust to different lines, and learn the track and just let the track come to him. This year he doesn't have the Saturday, and I think that's affecting him. So I think he moved up to Cup too soon. That's just my personal opinion. Ty Dillon, $5,300, starting in 29th. Was slow in practice, but he was in the second group. He's got a 26th place average finish. Actually, his total full history here is not bad at a 21.3. So that's a little bit better. That's Shane's practice. I don't know why Ty Dillon's isn't there. It's not good, though. 35th and the 32nd. But Ty Dillon, if he can go get 23rd, which is his average, that puts him pretty close to being potentially optimal. Not really top 15, so we're going to need a lot of things to kind of happen for that to work. I'm not a complete fade on Ty Dillon. He has been running a little bit better in the 10 car than he has in other cars in the past. I'll be willing to take some shots because after Ty Dillon's probably as cheap as I'm going to go, and I don't love going there by any means. Cody Ware, I mean, this is bad. He only makes it to lap 13, and he was just, this is not what you want to see. 35th to 32nd, he's going to get 12 points. No interest in Cody Ware. Cody Ware, in total NASCAR Cup points, I think is still below Jimmy Johnson, and Jimmy Johnson has raced once. Tells you how bad this is. JJ Yaley didn't do a 10-lap run. I didn't do a chart for him, but even if he finishes 32nd, which is asking a lot, he only gets 15 points. So I'm a fade on both of these guys. They're just, I mean, they're not worth your time. Don't take them. I know it's tempting because you're like, oh, well, I could take, I don't know, Kyle Larson and William Byron and Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott if I put Cody Ware and JJ Yaley in. Well, that's dumb. Don't do it. All right. Dominator potentials. Kyle Larson, William Byron. And Kyle Larson's going to need a little help to get up there to become, it's more of a stage 3 dominator. William Byron's more of a stage 1 dominator, and Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin look like a stage 2 dominator. So all of them could have potential dominator and finishing positions. So these 4 are the ones that I probably will be targeting the most, along with a Bubba, Ryan, Kyle Busch, and Ty Gibbs. Finishing or place differentials, the Christopher Bell, Brad Kay, Ross, Joey, Alex, Elliott, Josh Berry. I really do like the Josh Berry play today, by the way. Eric Jones. Yeah, after that, kind of falls off a cliff. So that's kind of what I've got. If you got any thoughts, wants, concerns, needs, speak now, forever hold your peace, because we don't have a whole lot of time to get our stuff built. We got about 3 hours before race time. So go get busy and start making those lineups. If you do have any questions, I will try to keep an eye on the YouTube channel to see if there's any questions. If you do, hit me up. If not, good luck. Next Saturday after the Xfinity race, I hope to be live back on regular time on Saturday nights. But other than that, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Let me know what you think about the new chart system. Do you like it? Does it take up too much time? I like it. I like that. I like the practice charts. I like all the stuff that I'm doing now. The problem is it becomes a really, really long stream. It's almost 2 hours. Good God. But I don't know. More information's better, I think. So let me know in the thoughts. Hit me up. Let me know if you like it or don't like it. Either way, good luck, and we'll see you next Saturday. Have a good one. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Hell yeah! Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys.
Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal and got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.